Hey everybody out there in podcast land, how are you doing? It is time for a very special episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0. We're doing a test here, one last final test to make sure we can figure out some way to record once we get to the month of June, the merry, merry month of June, because Spotify has screwed us over and they're forcing us to go with other platforms when it comes to recording our podcast. Right now I'm recording this on Riverside, which is their preferred, quote unquote, way to record. I prefer Audacity, but unfortunately, if you have a Chromebook, you cannot, without going through a whole bunch of hoops and bells and whistles and borderline destroying your Chromebook, you cannot set up Audacity on a Chromebook. I know the geeks out there are saying that's not true. Of course you can. Of course you can. And I'm telling you, I'm not taking the risk. I'm just not. So we're going to figure out here over the next couple days before we get to June what we can use, what we can't use. Good thing is the Conquistador and I have a plan, a backup plan that will work, so you will not miss any episodes of Sports Frenzy, whether it's the sports edition or the weekend edition, your Saturday morning hangover cure. So what we're going to do here, again, this is kind of a test, so I thank you for listening. We're going to split this up into two parts. You won't notice it, but I need to do this so I can check the editing software here with Riverside to see if this really actually works the way it's supposed to. So far, I don't like it. It's taking really awful, nasty pictures of me with the video camera on my Chromebook, and I have told it I do not want pictures taken, and it doesn't seem to recognize that or understand it, so I'm already off to a rip-roaring awful start. But what we're going to do here for the next 15-20 minutes is we're just going to have some fun. Now, this has nothing to do with your Uncle Dave. The Conquistador is out of this completely. I am going to give you my top 5 sports teams of all time. Now, it's just me, the Maestro, my opinion and my opinion alone. Couple rules, couple qualifications here for this. Number one, it's got to be a team that I have actually watched, whether it's on TV, in person. So we're not going to go back into the 60s. We're not going to talk about the legendary UCLA Bruins. We're not going to talk about the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach and Bill Russell. I know they were phenomenal teams. I am not trying to denigrate them in any way, shape, or form. But once again, this is going to be about the teams that I have watched, that I have lived through their dynasties in some cases, or 1 year of magnificence in other cases. So mid-70s on. So let's start off with number 5. We'll count down from 5 to 1. And if you guys have been listening to Sports Frenzy 2.0 over the last 3 years, you probably have a good idea of what number 1 is going to be. But number 5 is my favorite college football team of all time. They have fallen on hard times over the last 2 decades, but if we take the Miami Hurricanes, yes, the U, if we take the U, and we go ahead and we carry that through from the beginning of Howard Schnellenberger's reign, the first championship. I know it's not technically the start from when he became head coach, but from when they won their first championship through their last championship, five NCAA football titles between 1983 and 2001. Unparalleled, unmatched, again, from the mid-70s on. And I am admitting they have really sucked ass in the last 20 years. But from 1983 to 2001, through Howard Schnellenberger, through the great and glorious Jimmy Johnson, through Dennis Erickson, even at the end with Larry Coker, the Miami Hurricanes, and that 2001 team, many people regard as one of the greatest teams of all time in college football. That's my number 5 in terms of the greatest sports teams of all time. Now, number 4, could we talk about Jimmy Johnson a little bit more? Of course, Jimmy Johnson to me is the greatest football coach of all time. You can have Bill Belichick. You can have Bill Walsh. You can have Andy Reid. I will take Jimmy Johnson. The only reason Jimmy Johnson wasn't more dominant in the NFL ranks was because he had a psycho owner who at first was his best buddy and brought him in because they were best friends, and everything fell apart within the span of 3 or 4 years. And Jerry Jones, now to this day still the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, probably missing Jimmy a little bit. Because despite a fluke win with Jimmy's players under the unbelievably ridiculous, stupid leadership of one Barry Switzer, fluked into one last Super Bowl, the Dallas Cowboys from 1991 through 1996 with 3 Super Bowl titles, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, you know the names. Many of the players from that Dallas Cowboys run in the Hall of Fame right now. Could have gone on longer, could have been higher up this list if they had just set their egos aside, especially Jerry Jones. Because again, Jerry Jones is now looking at almost a 3-decade drought when it comes to titles since he forced Jimmy Johnson out. Another lesson for you kids out there, just because you're smart in business doesn't mean you're smart running a professional sports team. And yes, the value of the Cowboys has skyrocketed over these last 3 decades. But that's because all professional sports franchises, especially NFL franchises, the values have skyrocketed. It's not because of some wondrous, magical thing Jerry Jones is doing. Yes, he put together the Palace, AT&T Stadium, which is a gorgeous facility by all accounts. But how about the product on the field? How about you get back to the Super Bowl and produce a winning team and set your ego aside? As long as Jerry Jones is in charge of the Dallas Cowboys without Jimmy Johnson, I don't see how they will ever relive those glory days from 1991 through 1996. My 4th greatest team in sports history. All right, so now we're into the top 3. Again, thank you very much for hanging through this very special, brief Sports Frenzy 2.0 episode. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Of course, you will get your normal Thursday morning sports fix as well as your Saturday morning hangover cure with your Uncle Dave, the Conquistador Dave Height. This is a test. I'm trying to make it entertaining for you guys, but this is a test as we are being forced to, once again, I've said it once, say it one more time, forced to record through other means outside of Spotify, who have graciously let us not only run our podcast through their platform, but record and edit on their platform as well. But that ends coming June of 2024. So we've been running some tests. some of our other podcasts. If you haven't checked out mine, The Fortress of Rock, please do. If you love music, I expand on a lot of the reviews and the news that we talk about on the weekend edition here on Sports Frenzy 2.0. So we're into the top three. I will give you a little bit of a teaser here. There is no hockey team. There is no baseball team. And the sad thing is, my favorite team of all time, if I had to pick one franchise that I would say is my top franchise to root for, that is the Chicago Cubs. They are nowhere to be found. If you look back at their history, it's not much of a shock. I am trying to balance things out between my favorite teams, the ones I respect and admire, and the ones that really were truly great from the mid-'70s on. So number three, even though I am an Orlando Magic fan when it comes to basketball, I cannot deny the greatness of Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson and the Chicago Bulls from roughly 1990 to 1998. And then, of course, in there we've got that fantastic 1995-96 team that went 72-10. Yes, Michael Jordan was the greatest player of all time. Sorry, LeBron, you're not even close. But the people that Phil Jackson and the front office brought in, Jerry Krause gets credit for this. They always seem to build the right people around Michael Jordan. Of course, Scottie Pippen was the one constant throughout the whole process. Started off with Horace Grant, ended up with Dennis Rodman and Tony Kukoc, but it all seemed to work. But when you've got the greatest player of all time, really doesn't matter all that much, does it? 6 titles. 6 titles for the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson at the helm. And you can talk about how great the San Antonio Spurs were. That was all, in my opinion, dumb luck. And a lot of teams nowadays try to emulate the dumb luck that the Spurs got when they had David Robinson. He was injured. They stunk without him. And then they lucked into the number 1 pick in the lottery, got Tim Duncan, and the rest is history. That's not a great front office. That's not a general manager who knows how to build a team. That is dumb luck. And my Magic have been one of the luckiest teams in the NBA when it comes to how they have gotten the top picks in the draft. And for the most part, it's worked out wonderfully for them. Now, there are other teams who have gotten the first pick and they've botched it completely. But the Bulls didn't have to go through all that because they were just smart enough to know who to pick. Yes, you can argue that the teams in front of the Bulls that did not pick Michael Jordan in that fateful draft, was it Sam Bowie went ahead of him? Probably want to take that pick back. I could go on and on about the Chicago Bulls. And again, I'm not a Bulls fan. I'm an Orlando Magic fan. But I cannot help but respect and admire what Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, all of them did. What a phenomenal team they put together. And you can talk about Golden State. You can talk about, again, the Spurs. I don't think we're ever going to see in this day and age another dynasty in the NBA quite like the Chicago Bulls from 1990 through 1998. Now, honorable mention in basketball needs to go to, of course, the Showtime Lakers and the Boston Celtics from the 80s. Those teams were entertaining beyond belief, and they brought the NBA to the levels of popularity that it's enjoying today. And a lot of younger people can poo-poo me and say I'm wrong. I'm not. It was Magic. It was Bird. It's Jordan. Those were the guys that brought the finals off of tape delay and have now made the NBA the financial success, the overseas financial success that it now is. So as I throw accolades at the Chicago Bulls, I also do want to mention again, honorable mention to Larry Bird and Kevin McHale, DJ, Parrish, Boston Celtics from the 80s, and of course Kareem and Magic, Michael Cooper, James Worthy, and of course Pat Riley, the Lakers of the 80s, the Showtime Lakers. Moving on to number 2 in this very brief, very special, but thanks again one last time for listening, special episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0, the Maestro's top 5 sports franchises of all time, whether it be 1 year or a sustained run over decades or just 5 or 6 years. You can argue with me, you can send through your opinions and how I am full of shit, and that's fine. That is absolutely fine. Because opinions, everybody's got one, just like that certain part of our anatomy. Nobody's opinion can be right or wrong because it's an opinion. Number 2 on my list of the greatest sports teams of all time. And I am, again, not counting my favorite franchises. No Cubs here, no Magic here. So keep that in mind. Number 2 on my list are the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steel Curtain, specifically from 1974 to 1980. 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. Super Bowl victories under Chuck Noll. I don't know. I have not done a deep dive on this. Steel Curtain, though, I've got to believe, over that 6-year span, more Hall of Famers than any other team. Possibly, maybe. The previously mentioned Dallas Cowboys from the early 90s would probably be up there as well. Now, if we're going for one single year, the team at number 1 might actually win. But the Steelers from 1974 through 1980, yes, they are pushing the boundaries. As I said, mid-70s on. But I grew up watching the Steelers and the Cowboys, as my Bears were awful. Awful and terrible. I kind of liked the Houston Oilers back then. So I watched Dan Pastorini and Bum Phillips and Double O Ken Burrow and Billy White Shoes Johnson. But I grew to love the Dallas Cowboys as well. So I kind of had 3 teams back then when I was growing up. Bears, Oilers, Cowboys. But the Steelers always seemed, for the most part, to have the Cowboys number, even though I loved Roger Staubach and Tom Landry and the great, unparalleled wide receiver tandem of Golden Richards and Drew Pearson. But the Steelers were just, that again, a team that was put together so well by the front office. An insurmountable obstacle is what the Steel Curtain was. Terry Bradshaw, yes, he is an absolute doofus on TV now. Hard to watch, painful to listen to, but much like a Troy Aikman, managed the team, knew he had a ton of talent around him, and was able to win multiple titles. You had Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier on an unbelievable, amazing 1-2 punch in the backfield, Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, and then the defense. Mean Joe Green, Jack Lambert, and on and on and on. So even though I am not a Steelers fan in any way, shape, or form, how can you not? If you're my age group, mid-50s to mid-60s, how can you not acknowledge how unbelievable, how incredible that Pittsburgh Steelers Steel Curtain team was from 1974 to 1980. But now you probably all know, again, if you are a frequent Sports Frenzy listener, you know what's coming at number one. And I know that the Conquistador would concur with my pick here, and I don't care what you all think. It's 1 year and 1 year only. They were the greatest football team of all time. And this is why I didn't put the New England Patriots here. This is why I didn't put the Kansas City Chiefs, their current reign, on here on this list, is because if I look at these three professional football teams I've selected, the Cowboys from 91 to 96, the Steelers from 1974 to 1980, and my number one pick, of course, the monsters of the Midway, the 1985 Chicago Bears, of course winning the 86 Super Bowl. Those three teams would wipe the floor with any franchise you want to put out there. Now, there are some San Francisco fans who might have a valid, legitimate argument. I'll listen to them. But I'm not listening to the Patriots fans, and I'm not listening to the Chiefs fans. I'm not. Because the Bears would have swallowed those two teams alive, as would have the Steelers and the Cowboys. The 85 Bears were ridiculous. And this is still considering the fact that the Chicago Bears have never had a great franchise quarterback in the Super Bowl era. Jim McMahon got them through, got them by. People, of course, now look at what's happened over the last 25 years and they go, you have got to have the star quarterback. You've got to have Tom Brady. You've got to have Patrick Mahomes. Well, why is it that Jim McMahon led the greatest team of all time? Now, Troy Aikman's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I don't think anybody's ever going to mistake him for one of the top 15 quarterbacks, if not even the top 20 quarterbacks of all time. Same with Terry Bradshaw. But all three of those teams made my list. You know why? Because the rest of the pieces couldn't be matched by the Patriots, couldn't be matched by the Chiefs. Oh, maybe tight end. Yay. The 85 Bears, up and down that lineup. The quarterback was the weak link. Maybe the receivers, but you had Walter Payton, the greatest running back of all time, yes, at the end of his career, but still a factor. In the backfield, you had an unbelievable offensive line. You had the best defense. No argument. I don't care what Ravens fans say. I don't care what Buccaneers fans say. The 85 Bears was the greatest defense of all time. Look at the Hall of Fame. Look how many members of that defense, of that offensive line. Then, of course, Walter Payton. Look how many members are in the Hall of Fame. As I mentioned earlier, maybe the Steelers and the Cowboys give the Bears a run for their money or actually beat them, but no modern team would have ever been able to stand toe-to-toe with the 85 Bears, let alone the 74-80 Pittsburgh Steelers at number 2 on this list, or the 91-96 Cowboys at number 4 on this list of the Maestro's personal best sports teams of all time. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, a very brief 25-minute little jaunt as we try to set up for our next run, recording on different platforms than what we have been since we started 3 years ago. Thank you very much for being a test audience, let's put it that way. Thank you very much for listening. And of course, everything else stays the same. Thursday morning, Sports Frenzy 2.0, the sports edition. And then Saturday morning, your weekend hangover cure. The best and the worst in pop culture, movie, TV streaming, and music reviews with me. And of course, your Uncle Dave, the Maestro and the Conquistador. Each and every week, twice a week here on Sports Frenzy. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.